How to get owner financing on a flip. Hey guys, it's Brad from probatehouseguy.com. So I am actually a real estate investor who specializes in the world of probate and inheritance properties. I flip, I wholesale, I do rentals, I do owner financing. I've even done some land development deals. You name it, I've done it. Like I mentioned, I specialize in probate and inheritance. I actually have a very unique way of getting probate and inheritance deals that we generate online all throughout the country. It's a little bit different than the way most people generate probate deals. And I need partners to work with to hand these leads off to. I can't work all these leads. So if you're interested in learning more about that, go to probatehouseguy.com. So let's get into it. Let's talk about doing owner financing on a flip. I've done this a lot of times. In fact, we just did one on a flip recently. And I want to kind of tell you my strategies on how I like to pitch the deal and structure the deal to the seller. Owner financing is not the right fit for every deal. Okay. Some of these people, I'm in some of the creative finance groups, and some of them are trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. They're trying to do subject to on every deal. They're trying to do owner finance on every deal. And you really have to listen to the sellers and talk to the sellers to understand whether that might be a good fit for that specific situation. Obviously, not in all cases, but in many cases, the seller needs to own the house free and clear for a seller finance, an owner finance. Now, there have been situations where the seller has owed a small amount on the property, and we basically used our down payment to pay off whatever outstanding loan they had, in which case then the seller would own it free and clear, and they could issue us, basically seller finance the property. That could be your cash down payment, basically. Now, obviously, you can do subject twos and take over the mortgage, and I've done that on flips before. I'm personally not a huge fan of subject to, and I'm making this video at the end of 2023, and I know a few people now whose notes have been called due because of subject to just in the last few months. Lenders are starting to pay attention to this and crack down on this. Think about it. If you are a lender and all of a sudden you can write loans at 7% interest, and you see some funny business going on with a loan that you've got at 3.5 or 4% interest, don't you think as a lender it would be in your best interest to call that note due so you could turn around and loan that money back out at a higher interest rate? Well, that's the environment that we're in right now. Obviously, there's some things that can trigger the due on sale, but I'm not. This is not a subject to video. I'm not. I'm gonna leave it at that. Right? We'll do that. We'll save that for another video. And there's a lot of other people out there that can better explain subject to than I can. But I have done it on flips and seller financing on flips. So let me tell you how I like to pitch seller financing on a flip to a seller. First of all, if you are an investor and you are working through a real estate agent to submit an offer to an agent to a seller, your likelihood of success in this is next to nil. In my experience, what I have found is that most agents are uneducated in the world of seller financing. They hear about it when they get their real estate license. It's talked about briefly, but most of them don't understand the value or understand how that works. So what does a confused mind say? And remember this, always remember this. What does a confused mind say? A confused mind says no. Okay? So always remember that whenever you're pitching any creative finance deal or anything, a confused mind says no. So always make sure that when you're explaining these things to a seller or to an agent or to anyone for that matter, you use the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid, or keep it stupid, simple. Or people say it either way, right? Keep it simple, okay? The way I like to pitch these deals is I like to spoon feed information. I throw a piece of information out there and I throw like a question and I would expect a response, and I want them to be curious about it and respond to me. So, for example, I might say, well, what if I could get you a little bit more money for the house than that other guy gave you? And they're like, okay, tell me more. Okay, what if I could do this? Tell me more. You want them to keep asking you for more information, because if you just brain vomit and dump everything on them all at once, they're going to be overwhelmed. They don't understand all the real estate jargon. They're going to just say, no, not interested. I want the cash offer. Also, another tip here: if you are pitching seller financing or any creative financing deals for that matter, you have to take the cash offer off the table. Completely take it off the table. Throw it out the window. In fact, in my opinion, the way my business works is I have a leads manager. I have some other employees that do administrative stuff, but I have a leads manager from a customer facing perspective. I have a leads manager who speaks to all the customers. They're the first point of contact. They do all the follow up. And then when they feel like the deal needs to be handed off to our acquisitions manager, they then hand the deal off to the lead off to the acquisitions manager, and the acquisitions manager takes it from there. My leads manager actually books the appointments for the acquisitions manager. Sometimes my leads manager will take the deal all the way to the finish line. If she feels like she can get it to the finish line, she will take it to the finish line over the phone. But we are old school. The way I do business, I'm old school. I know a lot of people do a lot of virtual stuff, do a lot of things over the phone, all that stuff. I'm still old school. We do belly-to-belly appointments still. That's just how I like to do business. You can run your business however you like. I like to do it the old school way. It works. We're successful at, especially in these probate deals. These are a lot more, I would say, personal of a matter, requires a little bit more gentle touch, a little bit more personal interaction. That's just my opinion on these types of deals, versus some of the other stuff is a little bit more, call it transactional. So in this situation, I will have my acquisitions manager go out there and pitch the cash offer to the seller, right? I do not let my acquisitions manager, sometimes he does, but for the most part, I don't let my acquisitions manager pitch creative financing deals to the seller. The reason why is because I want to completely separate those conversations. So usually either my leads manager or myself, which I don't go on appointments much anymore with sellers, but I maybe will call them over the phone and pitch them the alternative. Now, if I'm on the appointment, and I rarely go on appointments, but sometimes I do go on appointments, I will pitch both in the same conversation, but I know how to pull that cash offer off the table and in that conversation right there. Because if someone always knows that there's an alternative to get cash fast today, usually they're going to take that. They're going to take that cash offer because it's easier today. Also, because maybe their mind is confused by the seller finance thing, and they've just sort of pushed that off to the side and said no to that in their mind. Let me take the cash. Well, if you take the cash away, that's the way to do it. And I actually learned this from my friend Jerry Green. I highly recommend Jerry Green. Jerry Green purchased REI Sales Academy from our friend John Martinez many years ago. Highly recommend their sales training courses. I'll put a link below in the video if you want to learn more about that. But taking that cash offer off the table is something I learned from Jerry Green, and runs a huge company in Ohio, has been doing this for a long, long time, done thousands of deals at this point. So take the cash offer off the table, okay? And here's how you pitch the seller finance. For a flip, and this is for a flip. I'm only talking about flips here. I'm not going to talk about anything else in this video. But for a flip, what you want to do is sort of engineer your owner finance offer based off the cash. So you want to actually anchor if you feel like you're trying to get seller financing on this offer, you want to kind of not push hard on the cash offer. You want to present it. But you really want to kind of lowball the cash offer, because you're really trying to steer them to take the seller finance offer. And but first, before you even pitch any of that, you got to understand the seller's needs. And first of all, like I said, in most cases, the house needs to be paid for, right? You also need to have that conversation about what are you going to do with the money when we buy the house? And if the seller tells you I'm going to stick it in the bank and I'm going to do XYZ with it, then there you go. Like that's a good situation. If the seller doesn't need the money today, and you got to have that conversation with you got to ask them some questions. I know for some newer people, it might sound like that's intrusive asking them about their financial situation, but all you got to do is say, hey, just curious, like, hey, if I bought your house today for 150, like, what are you going to do with the cash? Like, do you have plans with it? Like, you're going to go somewhere, you buying something, whatever, and then stop and just let them talk. You got to stop right there. That's another mistake a lot of people make is they talk too much. They over explain it. You got to stop, take a break, and let them stew on that for a second. Okay. So once you've figured out that this might be a fit for them, right? Then if they say like, oh, I need the cash because I'm buying another house next week and I'm taking all this cash and using it as a down payment for the other house, that kind of complicates and muddies the waters a little bit because they might need all that cash. Now you could say, what if you did a down payment? But really, if they've already in their mind made up their decision that they're going to use the cash to put down on the next house they're going to buy here in a week or 2 days or whatever, owner finance might not be the best fit for them in this situation, right? This is about the seller and you, but really you need to listen to the seller's needs and not just throw something in the seller's face. Otherwise, you're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. So once you've kind of identified that maybe this is a candidate for seller finance, then, like I mentioned, you're going to take the cash offer off the table. And then the way you structure your offer is you're going to lowball your cash. You are trying to anchor them low so that every offer, and this is just a kind of a psychological tactic, you're anchoring them low. This is anchoring is sales 101, right? You are anchoring them low, and then basically every offer you give them above that sounds so much better than the one you've already presented. So let's see here. Now that you've done that, you've anchored them low. Now what you're going to do is you're going to say, well, what if I could get you some more money for the property than this other offer over here? And they'll say, okay, sounds great. Everybody likes more money, right? Okay. You say, well, I could give you a little bit more money over time. I could pay you principal and interest payments over time, but this would actually be because most people are going to say, well, I want the money now. Like, I don't want to wait however long to get my money. But for the purposes of a flip, you can say, well, what if I could get you more money within the next 12 months or the next 6 months? Like if it's a quick flip, maybe you do a 6-month note. I would highly recommend, if at all possible, to try to get at least a 12-month note, if at all possible, because you never know what can happen. And I've got another video about the inspector from hell and that slowed down a project of ours, and it took a lot longer than we wanted it to. But anyways, try to get a 12-month note. Say, well, within the next 12 months, I could get you more money if we did this. And say, I could give you a little bit of cash down. A lot of guys that do seller financing like try to get it for no money down, and some of them are successful, but a lot of people see you putting cash down as like a good gesture to know that you're serious about the deal and you've got some skin in the game. So we try to figure out what's the minimum amount of cash that they might need today to do X, Y, and Z. For example, we did one a few months ago, and the seller had some medical bills to pay off. And we said, okay, well, how much do you need for your medical bills? And it was like, $10,000 or something. So I was like, okay, what if we give you $10,000 cash at closing? Because what does that do? That right there solves their problem. Because all they're thinking about at the moment is their problem, which is those medical bills hovering over their head that need to be paid off. So if you can pay off their medical bills, you've solved their pain point. And at that point, there is no pain point for the foreseeable future for them because now they got the house off their hands and they got their medical bills paid, and the rest is just icing on the cake. So then you can pitch them to give them more money over time. So then what you do is you will say, hey, if I bought this cash today, I would actually be using one of my private investors, right? I pay them interest. I pay them, double-digit interest on their money. And we turn their money multiple times a year or whatever. What if I paid you the interest instead? So then the way I structure the flip is I try to say, well, I'd be paying them, X amount in interest, $10,000 in interest. What if I gave you $10,000 in interest instead of giving it to them? And you remember where I talked about like my low anchor of my cash offer? So all I usually do is I'll take my cash offer and I'll add that $10,000 in interest to the cash offer. So I could say, well, I could get you, let's say it's $110,000 versus my cash offer was 100. What if I could give you $110,000 instead of that? Basically, we'll pay you interest on that. And then the way I try to structure that, now sometimes you'll have to pay payments to them. I try to avoid paying payments and just do a lump sum interest at the end. And I'll say, well, we'll write a note that says, we're going to give you $10,000 cash down today. So I'm basically giving you your interest today, right, up front. And then we're going to secure you to the property and you carry a note for $100,000 for the next 12 months. And then basically you tell them our attorney's going to prepare the paperwork and say, just like any other situation, if we defaulted on this for some reason, but remember, we're just going to flip the property and we're going to turn around. We're going to put our money into rehabbing it and we're going to turn around and sell the property to somebody else. More than likely, it'll be within the next 6 months, but you want to make sure you don't set expectations that it'll be paid off any sooner. You just say, kind of hint at like, well, usually these projects take 6 months, but we want to do a 12-month note because things happen. Life happens, whatever. But you try to want to minimize setting expectations and you want to make it clear to them that this is a 12-month note. Okay. And then you say, well, I can pay, when I pay you off, I'll pay you $110,000. That's how you structure it. So you figure in your down payment, you create this interest amount, and it's just a total arbitrary number at the end of the day, this interest amount. But the way you're positioning to them is that you would be paying someone else that same amount of interest anyways. So what if you paid the interest to them instead, to the seller instead of your private lender? And you that amount you can literally make it could be an arbitrary amount, right? And then you tack that on as interest to the note. You could say, well, the note would be this, and then we'll actually pay you off at this. So that's how I like to pitch that. And then I try to do no payments and just accrue the interest. And then I pay them off at the end. They get paid off. And you let them know that this is recorded with the courthouse. This is like the attorneys or the title company's going to prepare these loan documents. And this is going to get recorded. And when we're going to call you and ask you for a payoff when it's all said and done. And we're going to send you the attorney, whoever closes it and sells it. Or I say the attorney because I live in Georgia, so we close with attorneys here in Georgia. But in Georgia, basically, our attorneys are essentially a title company. So if you're in a title company state, the title company's whoever's doing the back end closing when you go sell the property, they're going to go request a payoff from the seller. And you can just let them know you're secured. Here's the note. Here's the terms, all the things. And that typically makes them feel a little bit more comfortable and that you're not trying to pull any funny business. So remember, I'm just going to recap, right? Always take the cash offer off the table. Always, always, always take the cash offer off the table. And then create this interest amount and tack it on to the amount. They think they're getting more, and they are getting more money than your cash offer, right? So those are my tips for getting seller financing on flips. You got to gauge the seller, figure out if it's even the right fit for them. And then you got to, kind of go through those other steps. And definitely, like I said, go check out Jerry Green's REI Sales Academy training. I highly recommend it. My team has been through it. I've been through it. Been using those tactics and methodologies for many, many years. They work great. So thanks again for checking out this video. This is Brad from Probate House Guy. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, if you are interested in working with us and getting leads from us, you could go to probatehouseguy.com to learn a little bit more about how all that works. Thanks again. Have a good day. Bye-bye.